The Quaker Meeting House was built in 1838 as a school.
And it remained a school until about the 1860s, when most of the children had been integrated into the Nantucket public school system.
I would first off describe the meeting house as plain, no frills, just plain white walls. I must say somewhat uncomfortable wooden benches, very straightforward. And but that's the way the Quakers wanted it to be. Quakerism, as I understand it, celebrates the idea of something that Quakers generally refer to as the inner light. You can think of the inner light as representative of a close personal relationship with God. So in other words, Quakers believe that God's presence is in all of us. And we don't need, or the Quakers don't believe that you need a priest, for example, to act as an intermediary between yourself and God.
Two of the families that came down who purchased the island, the Swains and I think it was the Hussey family, had Quaker background. And of course, Thomas Macy had befriended Quakers, and he was hauled before the puritanical folk in Boston and fined. He got his money back and he left. He and his wife came down and settled here.
Initially, when the island was first settled back in 1659, there was no paid clergy of any kind. They felt pretty strongly about that. They didn't feel they needed a paid clergy to get by around here. Those who worshipped here on Nantucket in the early days ministered in their own homes. One of the main reasons I think Quakerism appealed to the people of Nantucket was that one of its core principles is that men and women are spiritual equals. And that's important because here on Nantucket, particularly, the women were a very integral and important part of the community, and they were a little bit ahead of many of their contemporaries in that way. Because when you think about it, the men would go off whaling for voyages lasting 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 years at a time. Who was going to run the island in their absence? The women were. So it was appealing to them, I think, to have a religion that not only accepted it, but celebrated it. The decline of Quakerism on Nantucket was brought about by several different factors. As the whaling industry grew and became more and more prosperous, there was such a tremendous amount of wealth flowing into Nantucket through whaling that simple, plain ideal that the Quakers embraced so strongly for many years began to decline in popularity. And frankly, when whaling declined on Nantucket, towards the mid-1800s, there were a lot of people who picked up and left. And probably there were a lot of Quakers among those people who picked up and left and settled elsewhere.